a professional businesswoman, do you ever wonder what's it take to get to that highest level? And is it worth it? Is it all just blood, sweat, and tears, and you actually have to give away your whole soul? And then you have to go to college and pay for that through selling your parents' home, maybe even selling your parents. Who knows? Today, we are going to be talking with 4 incredible powerhouse women who have reached those pinnacles and also have suffered some tremendous challenges. So they're going to be divulging all their secrets. I have wine and champagne on the table, so we're going to be diving deep. Let's get started. Let me introduce you to these incredible women. To my left, we have Sarah Margolis. She was a winner of Shark Tank. She has a company that she founded with her then husband called Honey Fund. She has since moved on. She has gotten a divorce, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and bought out her husband. What a badass. And the best part is, guess who her Shark Tank partner is? It is Mr. Wonderful himself, Kevin O'Leary. Yeah. So we're going to find out. I have so many questions. And then sitting next to Sarah is a person who I've gotten to know that I just absolutely adore, Brenda Lorimer. And Brenda has done some amazing things, such as starting with the movie Bottle Shock. And for those youngins who are watching this, it is not Bottle Shock the beer. It is Bottle Shock, the box office hit, which was in 2008?
2008.
We launched at Sundance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to point any fingers to someone who did think it was the beer, but it's not. And also she and her husband, Mark, they co-founded the Napa Valley Film Festival, which has grown into this amazing, amazing event. And now you're about to release your second movie. Can I say it? Mm-hmm. Dear Zoe. And that'll be coming out within the next year or so.
Sometime in 2000 and where are we? 2020.
2012. Okay, so coming out right around the corner.
Hopefully in the fall.
Okay, all right. So we'll be hearing about that too. And then right here is the amazing Michelle Shabady. And Michelle, her resume, if I went on, and I mean, all these women have amazing resumes, but Michelle was just before we came on, she was giving a little bit of her background. And I was like, oh gosh, that's like touching the surface of what I saw. But she's an amazing woman. She is actually a pioneer in the whole internet industry. She helped start 5 big businesses that some went on to IPO.
Right. One was very successful. So that was marketwatch.com.
And also the Wired News, too.
Wired, yes. And so Wired, yes. So that was interesting where at Burning Man, the company shut down. Everybody went to Burning Man. This was Wired.
Okay.
So, except me.
That's why she's successful. She wasn't stoned or drunk or on whatever the hell. Yeah. So, and she's done so many other things. The other thing that I love about Michelle is she's also a private pilot and a motorcycle enthusiast. So, a woman of many, many hats. And then next to Michelle, we have the incredible Deb Rock, who is just, talk about perseverance. I can't wait to dive deeper. She founded a company called Sonoma Hot Sauce, which is the only Latina-owned company that it sells to the commercial market. You also founded a nonprofit called farmersdaughter.org, focused on helping women and children of migrant workers. So the other thing about her is that her goal eventually, when she grows up, is to become a stand-up comedian. So who knows? Today may be the day. Let's find out. But let's get started because there's so many things, so many questions that we all want to know. So I want to start knowing some things about y'all. My first question is high school. Did you all know you're going to be super successful? And was this your plan? Is this where you wanted to be? Are you where you wanted to be in high school? Or did you have other aspirations? Deb, what did you want to be when you were a little girl?
Well, I always wanted to be in fashion, and being that I'm a native Washingtonian, I wanted to work for Nordstrom and be a buyer, of course, and travel the world. And, I was a very artistic, creative child, but one that never took an art course. Nobody ever really noticed that about me, that I was a creative. And so there were a lot of things that I learned while I lived in Louisiana for many years, so learned from some of the most lovely women on the planet, hospitality and decorating and design and just beauty in general is very important to the women of the South, of course. When I went to school was more of a marketing and sales route in college, and so I really fell in love with the sales. So I'm a great salesperson my entire life. I've sold my ideas and me and personally and vision, and so today I think that that's really a hallmark of how I took a passion and kind of turned it into something that's really helped me get through the life that never turned into anything fashionable. Ever.
Funny, it's all a journey. It's all a journey. Brenda, what about you? Were you always going to make movies? Did you know that?
I loved movies. I didn't think I was going to make them. I mean, I fantasized, I guess, a little bit about being a filmmaker, but I wanted to be a anchor woman. I wanted to be on ABC and be telling the world the news. I wanted to tell the good stories. And unfortunately, I grew up in Hillsborough, in the peninsula in California, and I was very privileged to go to a wonderful high school. It was all girls. So actually, the first thing I wanted to do was just I wanted to go to Stanford and meet boys. That was actually what I wanted to do first. But anyway, 7 years in a girls' school. But I thought, being a white girl in the 80s, what kind of opportunities was I going to get? And I didn't realize that if you really wanted to take on an opportunity like trying to be in news, I would have had to start at the bottom and make coffee for the producers. And I just didn't understand that that's really the journey you have to take. You have to start at the bottom. And jumping fast forward, after I did graduate from Stanford, I got a job with the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee. So working in the PR and marketing side, I thought, well, this will be the way I get to broadcast journalism. And then it totally didn't go in that direction. And how many years later did I make my first movie as a producer? Literally in my 40s. It's just crazy. So anyway, that's what I wanted to be in high school. But I think, to your point, Deb, the things that you aspire to and that you work at when you're in high school, if you're lucky enough to have a good education and you care about education, I cared about studying and also having fun. I cared about people. I cared about telling good stories. I wanted to know people's stories. I'm a very inquisitive and curious person. So all the traits and the things that I worked on that I was kind of just naturally good at ended up being assets that were applicable to everything I did along the way.
Sarah, what about you? Were you always going to be honey fun?
No, I would have had no idea. I grew up in Northern California, being, in a very progressive town, being sort of like a hippie girl from the 90s grunge era. I was good at math and science. I hated everything having to do with sales, marketing, or even writing, history. I loved formulas, plugging numbers in and getting a right answer. That was my thing. And I went to college with engineering scholarships, and I really quickly realized that was not even close to who I am and what I wanted to do with my life. I thought I would be a college professor or some kind of performer. I love to sing. And I ended up getting a degree in music in college. But once I got out, I graduated into the dot-com boom. And that was really, I'm a product of the time that I got into the workforce. I went into tech companies in marketing, and I loved marketing. I soon discovered it was a way for me to express my creativity and to teach people things and to, like you were saying, get to know people and find out what makes them tick and convey messages to them that they could relate to. And then it was time to get married and have a family, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go get a PhD and become that college professor, but how am I going to have 2 babies before I'm 35?
You clone yourself. I'm
Right.
working on that.
And there was no way I could do it. I knew that I would be a miserable mother and a miserable student if I tried to do both at the same time. So my ex-husband and I, we wanted to be entrepreneurs. We decided that was the right thing for our family so we could have time with our children. And we started Honey Fun because it was a fun side project and we thought eventually it could make us some money. And then fast forward, here I am.
And it did.
Yeah.
You know that you got to meet
Brilliant idea.
Kevin O'Leary.
Brilliant idea.
And Michelle, I mean, you have done so many things. I just touched on just a little bit. What did you think when you were in high school?
So, when I was in high school, I actually was a cheerleader. From junior high, and I just love to jump around and, but I also was a tomboy, and I was just outdoors all the time, and hard to peg down, and was riding horses bareback and all that. But when I took, what do? You take this Myers-Briggs test when you're younger.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be a forest ranger.
Oh.
Right. So, but then I got, the further I got in high school, I thought, well, maybe how about a doctor? So I took pre-med courses and what have you in college, and I just hated organic chemistry. Oh God! So I didn't went off in another direction and ended up being a history major. And I love books and movies, but always kind of go to the books first. So I got a degree in library science. Wow. So I'm a librarian. Yeah, so there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I love doing research, and I can go down rabbit holes and all that. But then I went back and got a degree, an MBA. Okay, and went into business. So, but I just never really in high school. I just didn't have this passion for one thing. I just was going here and ended up with the history major and then library science, books all the time. And I just enjoyed film later in my life, but I never really watched much film. So opposite of you.
Yeah, I watched a lot of movies.
And then I actually love to do different things, and I actually got my pilot's license very young. I was in my 20s, and
That didn't scare you?
it was exciting. I remember pushing down the rudders for your first solo flight, and my knees were shaking so bad that I didn't think I could have the pressure to push them down. But your first solo flight is a bit daunting, I should say. But you do it. You get down and.
Okay, so I want to ask you from there, because one thing that we talk about a lot on my show is pushing through those fears, pushing through these limitations that we set. So, going through what you did.
Right. I have this thing about me that once I start something, I'm kind of get really focused and I just do it. And you have to study. There's a lot of math involved and all that, and you just keep going. But you kind of have to be myopic, if you will, and a little bit focused. So I'm able to do that for a while, and then I go on to something else. So I'm kind of one of these people that, I've just done so many different things, but I'm pretty intense. Yeah. When I first start them. In the past several years, past 5 years, I've learned to weave. I'm weaving on a floor loom. And that's intense, and that's, talk about making mistakes and having to go back and correct. And you cannot have a martini while you're weaving.
No. Right.
Oh, it doesn't work.
I've learned that.
That's why I do shows. I can
right. So anyway, so yes, I think, being able to concentrate and just get off of whatever you're on and social media even, and just concentrate for a short time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, because so many of us have different interests. Like you were saying, you went through a bunch of different interests that you had right then, but to have a successful company, in all your opinions, does it take a certain type of focus, or is it better to get other people involved that maybe have a different skill category? I'm talking about when you first start. Let's talk about that. Let's dive in there. Who wants to start with this?
I think, well, in my experience, and I do a lot of advising with startup companies now, and I'm an angel investor, so I'm really involved in early stage companies. The best thing you can do is get a set of advisors. Maybe one is a buddy, maybe one is a former college professor you've had, but you need a group of at least 2 or 3 people that you go out and ask, how am I doing? What's the next step? We all have strengths and weaknesses. I'd like you to talk about maybe how I can use my strengths, or what, that sort of thing. So you really need some people who will be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I find that's a balance, because the founder's passion is always this really magic thing that happens in the beginning of a product or service, which can ultimately become a company. But really, it's not about starting a company. It's about starting a movement, or starting a new product or business, or bringing a new message to an audience, or knowing that you're just this sauce has to be in the stores because it's the best one. And that passion and that fire that you start out with as an entrepreneur is something completely different from running a company, which is where I think the mentors and advisors and the people that do know what you don't know is absolutely crucial. So it's that transition from getting it up and running, having some early success, to creating a sustainable business. That's the hardest in my experience.
So let's go there, because I know I've started many companies, and I've worked with a lot of women who are doing the same thing. Often there's no money. There's no money in the beginning. So you can get advisors, but if your advisor's your mom or your dad or your best friend who really is not an expert in that industry or in that field, it can actually set you back, as I know we all know. So what's some advice there? Where do you get money for a movie? Or
Well, I'll start with the film festival. I agree with both of you. You do have to do your due diligence, and the founder's passion is absolutely the number one asset that you have to have. Mark and I had a very clear vision for what we wanted to do in Napa Valley. There was no film festival. There's a reason there was no film festival in Napa Valley, because it's very, very, very hard. And Napa Valley is 30 miles long. So we were creating a festival for an entire valley, 4 different festivals in each town over the course of 5 days. So we had this clear vision. But we spent 18 months in development, just like you would with a film. We spent 18 months talking to every single stakeholder in the communities that we felt would give us advice, would say, hey, stay away from this, make sure you do it this way, don't exclude Calistoga. We always feel like a stepchild. Here are some of the politics you have to be aware of. And we took 18 months not only to learn those lessons and to take that input in so that everybody would feel heard, and that once the festival started, it would be a festival that was rooted in the communities, because the communities helped us give that with that feedback. Then on the financial front, we had to put our money where our mouth is. In order to raise money to get those initial patrons and those initial sponsors in, we had to say, we're going to go and we're going to dig into our savings, and we're going to put in X amount of dollars, and we will not take a salary for the first 6 years. And we didn't. We just sacrificed it all. And now we're lucky enough that we could. But if you don't have the means that we had, you've got to find those angel investors who believe in your vision and will support you and be a great input. So, and then taking it from there to sustainability, absolutely the most challenging thing. And in our case, luckily my husband's a brilliant businessman and he's run companies. And so we had not only that vision and the founder's passion and the energy and the love to do it, but we also had the skills to keep the business going and to grow it. But then you give it away, and that's another issue that a founder has to deal with. At what point do you, I think you've brought this up when we've talked, pivot or exit, and we were in a position, but we built it to where we wanted it to be, and we were excited to keep going, but people around us wanted to take it from us. And when you've built something that's successful and other people want it, you have to figure out, is it worth the fight to keep it? Or do you just trust and believe and hope that in the new hands, your baby will grow up to be a very successful human being? And that's interesting, because that's the position, and that's where I am, or that's where we are now. And it's a huge challenge, and it's extremely emotional, and it's very, very difficult. The hardest thing is to give it away.
Deb, you have also, you had to start your business. Did you start it by yourself, or did you?
I did, and it's been totally tough. I mean, not only have I had a dream to bring hot sauce to market since the first, awesome batch that I made 26 years ago, but I did my research and found out that it's almost impossible to do. And I bought the book, read all the books, and then just abandoned trying to do it because I knew how hard it was going to be. And so when I moved here, I knew that I wanted, edging onto 50, that I wanted to put all this energy into Deb Rock. And this was an important time in my life because I didn't want to work, traditionally forever. So I wanted to bring to what I call my deserted island food. So if I'm on a deserted island, I'm never gonna. I have to have hot sauce. So we're gonna put it on. Yeah. Well, like I hear rats taste like chicken. And I was like, if I were on a deserted island, I'd want hot sauce. So I committed to that, and what I found is that everyone has a hot sauce story. Everybody lights up. It's just the funnest product. It's so fun. And every time I'm in the public or I'm doing demos now, or I get an opportunity to do a tasting, or I do a lot of wine events here too, believe it or not, people that love flavor just love flavor, and they just want the best flavor. So my flavor profile, being in wine country, my peppers grow in the same climate as the best wines in the world. And so the techniques that I'm using to grow peppers for hot sauce are some of the same ones they use to create the best Cabernets in the country. So it upped my game moving here.
I think what she's touching on is surrounding yourself with people who are passionate about what you're passionate about.
Yes. If you don't have the support, you can't do it.
Because the passion brings people together. So if you say, I'm passionate about growing the best peppers that can complement a Cabernet grape, and then somebody else is like, well, I just had this Cabernet grape, and you're just bringing those synergies together. If you're all alone swimming in an ocean and nobody around you has any idea who you are, what you're doing, or has any connection to the industry that you're going into, it can be really much harder than it needs to be.
That's why you spend time in development to make those relationships happen.
Exactly. And so the second thing, so the first thing I talked about was getting advisors. The second is networking.
Totally.
Just what you're talking about. I mean, it is critical.
You can't survive if you don't do it.
No.
We got to go there. So networking. So what are some people are really shy. They're introverts, or maybe they're not even introverts, but they don't know how to go and approach someone. So what are some skills that you've learned or that you teach or that you know that help you open those doors, other than having a TV show where I can invite you?
Yeah, exactly. There's actually some good books out there now on getting out of your comfort zone and going to an event or function. Boy, it's hard because I quite honestly have never been an introvert. So I just started, I mean,
Not really.
I had to.
My ex is an introvert that helped me start the company. So I've seen it, and I understand that there are challenges when it comes to networking. I think the most important thing is to do something that feels authentic to you.
Yeah.
Because going to your farming class felt really authentic to you, and you just naturally ended up networking with the people that are interested in the same things you are. Going to an event you've never heard of with people you don't know what business they're in, and don't network just to network. Network to something that really feels authentic and right, and what you would be interested in. The passion makes the
An authentic purpose. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, you got to show up as an imposter.
And
it looks like you look as though.
Right.
Yeah.
But and when you're talking to people, and when we started talking about our vision for Napa Valley, people there were a handful, and I'd say a very significant handful, said, oh, "You're going to fail. I'm not interested in this." And so you just have to learn how to say, "Okay, no problem. Thank you. I respect you, and I'll move on." And then the 98% who think that your vision's cool and they want to give you their ideas, then the conversation starts to grow, and it's really infectious. And people bought into our energy and our ideas because they were attractive to other people, and then they got a chance to profit from it.
So we're going to wrap this part right now. I've been giving the sign and take a break.